Right, Glenn, firstly, thank you for coming today. And I do appreciate it, bearing in mind the date. Very pertinent for you today. Do you like to tell us why today is so important?
Today is the 25th anniversary of the passing of my younger brother David, who obviously played a massive part in my life. He's my inspiration, my hero, just a lovely brother. And he unfortunately had Friedreich's ataxia and a muscle wasting disease, and it was a long and painful death. And he had a profound effect on me. My book's called Carrying David, and the theatre plays Carrying David, and the plans for a movie Carrying David. So David's played a big part in my life, and he's a big miss. He struggled all the way through his life, and as I say, he was an inspiration for me winning the world title, because that's the reason I never give up, because David kept fighting and kept fighting and kept fighting for his life. And so he kind of shamed me into working so hard and carrying on when I felt like quitting. And he's with me, he's with me every day. I miss him every single day. And I mean, this week particularly is tough because a few days' time is my dad's anniversary. And like everybody else, currently with the pandemic going on, there's nothing but time, and lots of time to reflect and lots of time to feel sad and get depressed. And, I think a lot of people are... almost everybody's going through the exact same thing, So it's a poignant week this week. But we just got to keep carrying on. If anything, David taught me, it was just to keep going.
I actually wanted to go back, because prior to coming in, I've read parts of your book, and he managed to get to your world title fight, without you even knowing that he was going to be there. Do you want to explain how he actually got there?
Les, I can explain it to what I can actually make of it, because it was nothing short of a miracle. And I mean, that may sound ridiculous, but David obviously wanted to come to my fights, had been to lots of my fights, but my mum was nervous about going. It was a world title. I was a massive underdog, and my mum was very, very worried, so she looked after David on a day-to-day basis. So David couldn't go. So we went off, without David. And obviously, he was a miss, but you get on with it. It's a world title fight, and it was in Stanley. And my mum decided on a balmy summer's night, June 3rd, that she was a bit nervous, so she'd go and take David for a walk. So she thought, I'll go closer to Stanley Leisure Centre. I'll go to my aunties, her sisters, which is about 1,500 yards away from the venue. So she just went along, pushed the wheelchair from Anfield Plain to Stanley. And then they were nervous and didn't put the telly on, didn't put the radio on. And then there was a knock, a bang on the door, and it was the police. My mum obviously feared the worst. Initially, the police said, don't worry, everything's going great. Get David's coat, get his wheelchair, we're going. And the police took David and my mum to the fight. So round about middle of the fight, it was getting really tough. I looks over Lamumba's shoulder when we're in a clinch, and David's there, animated, throwing his arms in the air with a big smile on his face. And that was paramount. That was key to just giving me something extra I needed to get that win. And when asked how they got this at the police, and they were like, well, how did the police know? I mean, I know the police are good in Stanley, but they can't read minds. And my mum was like, I don't know. And we never found out who told them. And then I was there's a documentary just being made recently, and they actually found the policeman from Stanley who went and picked my mum up. And so they said, we solved the problem. We solved it. It's we found the policeman. And then they interviewed the police officer, and he said, how did you know? He says, I didn't know. Somebody in a lorry. I saw somebody in a lorry who stopped and asked for directions, and he told me the house to go.
Fantastic.
So
Yeah.
who the lorry driver was, who somehow knew where my mum was going to go, we'll never ever know. But it's a great story, and the best thing about it is David was there, and winning the world title was a dream of his, for himself and for me. And it was kind of our night. So it was a magical night.
So we need to find this lorry driver to complete the story. Is what
Do
you're
you know
saying.
what? I don't think this lorry driver exists. Because how could the lorry driver know?
Yeah. You did mention at the beginning of that story that you were a massive underdog. The guy you were fighting, for a start off, his nickname was the Killer. Yours is the Gentleman. Your nicknames, if nothing else, couldn't have been further apart. And he probably was the most dangerous cruiserweight at the time.
He was. Para Lumumba was he was the one everybody wanted to avoid. He hadn't had a great deal of fights. He was he'd had over 300 amateur fights and lost a handful. And he was an enigma, And he wasn't the most popular guy because he was very, very good. He was a Kenyan who had spent most of his amateur career boxing out of Sweden, and then was picked up by Don King and taken to America where he'd had most of his fights. And he was the guy that he's a bit too good for his own good. Was like a Lomachenko of his day. He was very, very talented. And Holyfield gave the title up, and I knew I was in the running for a shot at the title. And then, the one guy you didn't want to get matched with is Lumumba. The one guy that I got matched with was Para Lumumba. So, it made it better in a way, because when you've got nerves and fear, and when you're an underdog, and an underdog in your own village, you know what I mean? An underdog in Stanley. You're written off in Stanley. I was written off by the national press. Colin Hart, who kind of discovered me in the Sun. His headline was Glenn Zagona, and that was the feel of it. It's a group. The first world title fight ever in the northeast of England. The first challenge by a northeast fighter ever in. And it was going to be like a tough one. So, it was just great. I got it, and everybody in Stanley. The good thing about it was in my hometown, and everybody in that arena wanted me to win, and that was amazing. I think boxers are boxing with no crowds at the moment due to the pandemic. And I hope that changes soon, because if it hadn't been a crowd there, I wouldn't have won. Because it was it was my fans. They play such a part in sport, and that's what sport's all about. And they just pushed me over the line, stamped their feet for practically the last 4 or 5 rounds. The whole crowd in unison stamped their feet. It was a memorable night.
Before you actually got to the venue, I did read that you walked there. Is that true? I mean, nowadays people are pulling up in limos. There's cameras on them, and I understood you walked there.
I did. It was very different. It was very different for me. I didn't have big backers. I'd never had a training camp until that fight. I'd just trained in a little.
Is it true about the shop? Above a shop?
It was above a fruit shop. I got with my dole money. I rented in Catchgate a little room above a fruit shop, and I hung a bag and cut up a big metal post I got from a haulage dealer. Don't tell him that, because he didn't know. But we cut this post up, and my dad welded some plates on the bottom, and we put a little makeshift ring. But if you leant against the ropes and you hit the wall, all the cement fell on your head, so you couldn't go. You couldn't hit the ropes. So that was my gym. But all of a sudden, Matt Murray, who a local businessman who had the Royal Derwent Hotel at the time, said, "I'll sponsor you." He put porta cabins up in past Concert, where the Royal Derwent is, near Moorside, and it was amazing. We had 5 weeks, which again was not a lot of time, but I'd never done anything like that. So it was a very naive setup. It was my old amateur assistant coach and my brother, and a manager came over a week before Bo Williford. So it was very basic. It was very, very basic. But we had this training camp. I went on the night of the fight. I went to see my daughter. I lived in Station Road, which is at the bottom of Stanley. The leisure centre is 300 yards away at the top of Stanley, and went to see Tori, went to see Victoria, give her a kiss, said Daddy's going to be the champ, and then put my bag over my shoulder. Nobody even took my bag, and walked up the street, walked up Stanley Front Street. And on the way up Stanley Front Street, I'm sort of looking, I'm just going to the leisure centre for a fight. And I'm walking up the street, and then I see somebody with a dicky bow, a dinner suit on, a dicky bow tie, and I'm thinking, where? And then I see a lady in like a posh frock, like nice dress, and it's a lovely summer's night. And then I see some more guys pull up in a limousine at the top of the street. I'm thinking, what the hell's going on, Stanley, tonight? It was amazing, because that's how removed I was. It was live on ITV Saturday Fight Night. And to give you some idea of how big it was, Dickie Davis, who was the World of Sport presenter, Dickie Davis at the end of the fight, he does a speech, he's coming off, well done, this has been an amazing night. Glenn McCrory, the underdog, has pulled off a fantastic victory against Para Lumumba. And next week we'll be in Las Vegas, where Sugar Ray Leonard takes on Thomas Hearns. Yeah. I mean, that gives you some idea of the level we were competing at. And
your interview, obviously, we've missed out. I think everybody knows anyway. You did win the world title that night, but then you were interviewed in the ring.
I was interviewed in the ring, and it was weird, because I've dreamt of this my whole life. My whole life, I've made this speech in my mind, in my bed. I've made this speech and over again the whole time of growing up, what I'm going to say when I win the world title, because that was it. The dream was to win a world title, and all I've been told growing up of everybody was, nobody's won a world title in the Northeast. Just aim low. Even my own dad, God bless him, would say, like, Glenn, British title would be great, But I was always world title. Well, I'm going to be world champion. And then to get there was very tough, and I wasn't well looked after or managed well or anything like that, and I was making no money. And they asked me, put the microphone, Glenn, have you got something to say? And I thought, who do I thank? Thank my mum, my dad, thank David, do I thank the crowd, do I thank my trainer, I thought, no, Stanley Dole office, thanks very much, I'm not coming back. And I signed off the dole.
But saying that, the money didn't come along as you expected, is that right?
No, the money didn't come. I mean, it was probably the worst case of neglect, of just badly managed. And that goes on in boxing, unfortunately. And being from the Northeast, I think the managers that I had, both kind of thought, well, we can take advantage, because they don't know any different. No way should I have been on the dole. I was British. I was an undefeated British and Commonwealth champion, fighting for the world title, and I was still signing on, because if I got a payday, they'd stop my dole, and then I'd have no money till they'd give me dole till the next fight. So it was, and that's the reason I retired so early, was because of the management, because I felt they give me a fight with no time, 4 weeks notice to defend my title against Para Lumumba, which I was really angry about. My manager at the time, after I lost the fight, scarpered with the money, never to be seen again. I was 25 years of age, so he'd obviously just cashed in there and then. So it was really bad, and that's the reason I quit boxing. I quit at 25 years of age, because I was absolutely appalled by the treatment. It was horrendous. It was.
Yeah, were you forced to move up a weight when you had to fight Lennox?
No, Lennox was literally. I retired from boxing. I was working in a pub, and I got a tax bill for £80,000, and I didn't have anything. I hadn't earned any of that. My manager had left the country with money, and I had no receipts or anything like that. And I think the smart thing would have been to maybe go bankrupt or something like that. But I knew nothing about finances or obviously, you know, go bankrupt. You just come off the dole, you know. So it was really bad. But I then had to think, well, how am I going to get the money? You know, what are you going to do? You know, I'm going to, you know, I didn't have a lot, but I was going to lose everything. And the only thing I could think of was there was one guy who was coming up, who was British Commonwealth and European champion, and his name was Lennox Lewis, and he was the new kid on the block. He was going to be a sensation. And so I picked a fight with him at the Boxing Writers' Dinner at the Savoy, and after calling him a few choice names.
I was going to say, when you picked the fight, what do you mean?
When I picked the fight, just called him a few choice names and told him that he'd never fought anybody and he was never going to amount to much. And he took the bait. Lennox took the bait, and the fight was on. And it was, you know, I trained for the fight, but my heart wasn't in it. Obviously, it was for the first time ever that I was fighting just for money. And literally, Frank Maloney, Kelly Maloney as he's called, or she's called now, asked me for, what do you want? You know, I'll give you 20 grand for the payday, which was more than a lot more than I'd ever been paid. And I said no. I said, come back, 40 grand. I said no. I said, this is madness. You know, we'll get somebody else. Go away. You know, forget about you. And then they come back again. What do you want? I said 80 grand. They said, right. Well, Roger Levitt, Frank Maloney was furious. But Roger Levitt, who was looking after Lennox at the time, said, right, you've got the fight. So literally I fought Lennox, and my check came in one hand, went out the other hand, you know, which was, you know, I had to take a beating on national TV, you know, which hurt my pride immensely because, you know, I was better than that. You know, so again, I retired, you know, I got out of the game again, and, you know, the same thing keeps coming, you know, you then owe tax off that fight. So then it was a comeback again, and this time I fought for the world title at Cruiserweight again, got down to Cruiserweight, and I was in great shape. I was 27 years of age. I was the best shape I'd ever been, but I was still about 3 or 4 years away from my prime. So I never got, you know, nobody ever saw the best of Glenn McCrory. Nobody ever saw the best I could have been, just because of the treatment that, you know, I had to take. I hope that, you know, no fight ever has to go through what I went through, because it was to have the thing that you love the most, the thing that you've worked for all your life, and that's the world title, to see that taken away from you because they don't give you enough time to train, you know, and you know that they're your promoter, they're your manager, and yet they also managed the guy I was fighting and promoted the guy I was fighting. They were American and he was American. So, you know, you kind of knew what was coming. But for that to happen, to take that away from me, really hurt me bad. And I retired, and long before I should have. And as I say, you know, it hurt me really bad. And I think in my mind, there's a bit unfinished business, which might manifest itself.
There was one person who did see probably a very good side of you. As you say, you didn't get to your potential, but you got a phone call from James Till.
James Tillis, Quick Tillis. Yeah, the fighting cowboy.
Yeah.
He was a friend of mine who when I first went to America at 21, after, you know, being put in as a heavyweight I was a light heavyweight. I was a light heavyweight. Everybody in the Northeast that saw me box as an amateur was middleweight and light heavyweight. And then my first pro fight, they put me in in a heavyweight fight, you know, and that was always doomed for disaster as well, because I wasn't big enough. And but eventually, you know, got back to, you know, got my chance at Cruiserweight.
So the phone call you got, I was referring to the one where you went over to America.
I got a phone call of James Quick. I just won the Commonwealth title. I beat Shazan Namuti, who was a top quality fighter. I beat him, and then I get a phone call of James Tillis, and I'm getting a very paltry pay for this. You know, I'd signed off the dole for a little while, and that, you know, and then I get a phone call of James Tillis. Do you want to come sparring? And I'm like, yeah. Where? Atlantic City. Brilliant. Yeah. You know, he says you'll get paid. You know, I'm like, fantastic. Who with? Mike Tyson. I'm like, And he's, I'm training, I'm doing it. You'll be okay, Glenn. Your movement, you'll be fine. I'm like, you sure? He's like, Glenn, and then I thought, you know what? This is great, because this is what I need to get my confidence. Because obviously, losing 5 out of 6 fights as a heavyweight, I went through a dire time. When I was, I didn't have a gym, didn't have a trainer, didn't have anything. I'm taking fights just to make some money. Went through a terrible time, and then I get the call to make amends with Iron Mike Tyson, who was making huge noises. He was, the meanest man on the planet. He was just ripping the titles. He was undisputed champion. He was beating everybody. And this was to fight the Olympic champion Terrell Biggs, who he was defending his titles against, who was a top quality challenger, but who's a good mover and a good boxer. So under duress, they took me on. They didn't want me initially, because they said, I'm not big enough. I'm a cruiserweight. My record, I'm not going to last 5 minutes. So they said, we'll give you $200. We'll pay your expenses. We'll pay your flight. We'll pay your hotel, and you've got $200 a week spending money. And I was like, brilliant. You know what I mean? That's great. So I went out. They thought I'd last. They didn't think I'd last one sparring session, and I was there 5 weeks. Did the whole camp, and on the next fight he had against Larry Holmes, they made me chief sparring partner. When you think people like Oliver McCall, Tillis, James Broad, top quality heavyweights were there, they made me chief sparring partner.
And have you kept in touch with Mike ever?
No, I mean, I don't keep in touch on a weekly basis or anything like that. But whenever, the last time he was over here, he was doing a talk in, and he come and got me to be in his dressing room with his wife and his family, his little baby at the time, and he's great. We get on really, we get on really well. I got his respect over 96 rounds, and I don't think a lot of people at the time believed me, because Mike was so ferocious and Mike was so destructive that I don't think people at the time actually thought I really had sparred. I think, it was in the papers and this sort of stuff, but I don't think anybody did. And then about 2 years ago, Steve Lott, who videoed every single training session of Mike Tyson's, released the training, and everybody saw me on YouTube doing really, really well. So I got so much respect from that. I think that was, I'm probably more known for being the guy who went 96 rounds with Mike Tyson, more than winning the world title.
Well, you certainly held your own after seeing those videos myself.
I did okay, yeah.
So then it was on to commentary with Sky. How did that come about?
Well, that for me was the great thing, because I totally fell out of love with competing in boxing. I was disgusted with the business, disgusted with the boxing board of control, and everybody that had a hand in a sordid treatment that I got. But when I won the world title in Stanley, I got interviewed for the BBC of Ian Dock, and Ian Dock did the commentary for BBC Radio, which is fantastic. Is absolutely, radio comedy is great, because they describe everything that's going on. So if you've got a great radio boxing commentator, he's the business. Ian Dock was and still is. He's top man on the football now, and shame he's not doing the boxing, because he's the best. But I got interviewed of him for the BBC, and we had great conversation, great interview. I enjoyed it, because he was so knowledgeable, and he asked me questions that motivated me, that got me thinking, that because I love the history of boxing, and always prided myself on my knowledge of boxing, and he tapped into that, and he went away, and it was then after the fight he was approached by a new company called Sky TV, which nobody knew what was. Everybody was, are you going to put a dish? And everybody was saying, like, why do you work for somebody else? Why do you work for them, Glenn? I was like, no, I've been to America. I've seen everybody's got a dish in the garden. And they're like, nobody's ever going to put a dish on the house. Nobody's ever going to do that.
Yeah, the dishes were the size of people's houses as well, weren't they?
And I was like, no, I'm telling you, this is gonna work out. And I got a call from Ian Doc, says, would you want to, or he got a call from Sky to say, would you, they headhunted Ian from the BBC, and then they asked Ian, who would you like to have as a co-commentator? He said, well, you know what, Glenn McCrory's just won the world title, and he's so knowledgeable and so passionate about the sport. We just probably need to work on his accent a little bit, get him to speak English, and then he'll be away. And they did that, and it was brilliant. I had 27 years with Sky. I had 20 in the commentary seat, week in, week out with Ian Doc, traveling the world, doing some of the biggest fights ever, some of the biggest names and biggest fights all around the world, and just had the most amazing time. Met some great people, and it was wonderful. So it was 27 great years, and to be honest, that was a great consolation for the disappointment in my boxing career, because the commentary career, and I'm still commentating. My last fight was Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder for TalkSport. Back on the radio. So it's great. It's that's been a fabulous part of my career.
And no doubt you'll have come across a certain person called Roy Jones Jr.
I've done a few of Roy Jones Jr.'s fights, and let me tell you, Roy Jones Jr. at his best was as close to perfect as you could ever be. He was absolutely just the most amazing fighter of all time. I can put one person, Mayweather is pretty special as well, but the only fighter that I can generally say I would pick above Roy Jones Jr. is Sugar Ray Robinson. And I've seen extensive videos of Sugar Ray Robinson, who is just out of this world. There will never be another.
You haven't gone on from that story about why I've just mentioned Roy Jones Jr.
No, I haven't.
Now, you fought for the world title.
I'm testing your interview skills.
Yeah, what skills? When you fought for the world title at Cruiserweight, you fought, as we've already touched on, the killer, the best cruiserweight at the time, the one everybody tried to avoid, and you're going to do it again out of retirement. You're going to fight Roy Jones Jr., is that right?
Do you know what? It certainly, I certainly hope so. It looks like I've talked myself into something else. Taught myself into climbing a mountain last year, which was unbelievable. This year, I think I've taught myself into fighting Roy Jones Jr., which to be honest, I did the Tyson Jones fight for BT Sport in the studio, and it was, and I had my reservations about Mike Tyson, who I was with for a long time and had a great career, and then I was around for the demise of his career and his life to some extent. Roy Jones, I was there at his very, very best. He was amazing. We saw them fight a little while ago, at the beginning of December. Trepidation as to what it would be, but a bit of excitement as to see what the old guys could muster up, and they put on a really good show. Now, for the untrained eye, there was probably too much mauling, too much holding, but for a fighter, for somebody who's observed the game, my whole life, what I saw there was, a very strong, a very determined Mike Tyson trying to take Roy Jones' head off. And it took Roy Jones, who's a 5-weight world champion, it took every ounce of his skill, experience and know-how to get through that fight. And, I looked and I thought, whoa, that was good. And then, I don't know how, but I've spoke to Evander Holyfield off and on. We exchange phone calls now and again, and I wanted to see what he thought of it. And he said, it was good, it was good, Claire, it was good, And then he said, call me out, let's us do it. And I'm like, what? I thought it was a joke. So I'm like, right, I'll call you out. And I phoned up a guy from the press, and he put it on and all the rest of it. And it went national. Which I was quite surprised about. And then people tried to get in touch with Vander, and they got in touch with his people. And then all of a sudden, he started to ask, or his people started, his promoters or whatever started to ask for ridiculous money just to go into talks and all this sort of stuff. So it was kind of a bit of a laugh. And then I forgot it until Christmas Eve. And on Christmas Eve, somebody says, get on Facebook. I'm like, what for? He said, just get on Facebook. And then on Facebook was Roy Jones Jr. with a message for Glenn McCrory saying, I want to fight you. Evander doesn't want to fight you, so I want to fight you. Which it was kind of like pinching myself to think, is this for real, or is this a Christmas joke? And it was real. It was very, very, very real. So there's nothing else to do but accept it.
No, there was something else you could have done. It's not accept it, like the rest of us wouldn't have.
I suppose there is that, but that's not really my style. Do you know what? It just kind of got me thinking. Last year, like everybody, has been a really bad year for me, and I've suffered from the death of my brother and some friends and people close to me. When I was young, I suffered really bad with depression and mental health. And back in the day, you just, like so many, you just kind of, I'm a boxing champion and a big tough guy. You just keep, you're not supposed to feel bad. You're not supposed to have your head in the clouds. That, you're supposed to be, get a grip, be a tough guy. And, and I've suffered really badly, really had some very, very bad, dark times. And the pandemic, to be honest, has kind of pushed me over the edge. Last year was just terrible. Drinking, just trying not to be here. If I'm honest, it got that bad. It got that bad where I didn't want to be here. And I've always had a zest for life and wanted to live life for myself and live life for David, because he wanted to live so very, very much. And here's me, not long ago, having bad thoughts, terrible thoughts, and terrible nights, and so I saw this. All of a sudden, it's excited me and give me a glimmer of hope and something to aim for, because there's been no work, there's been nothing going on, nothing to look forward to, no fights to commentate on. So it's been a dire, hard time. So suddenly Roy Jones just give me a reason to get out of bed, give me a reason to get back in shape. And I got out of boxing 27 years ago, disgusted at how I had my treatment, and all of a sudden it just I thought, hold on, this is a stroke of luck. This is a gift. This is a gift from God. He's given me an opportunity, not just to get myself in shape, not just to try and inspire people, inspire myself, to give myself a goal, but to give other people. And I'm getting great messages off people saying, Glenn, you're helping me to stop drinking and to get myself in shape. And at the end of it, I got the chance to go in the ring, one of the greatest fighters that's ever lived. But also, for me, I'm working very, very hard, and it's tough, because there's facilities aren't open, and so it's rocky again. It's back to the old days where you've got to be more rocky than rocky. So my son is training me. My son's never got to see me fight. He was a baby back then, and then it's kind of great that now he's training me, and we're getting fit and we're pushing on, and I've been they're telling me that the fight everything in this world now is COVID based, and if we can get to a position where we can get fans in, we'll be fighting in the northeast of England, in Newcastle, on the 8th of May. There's going to be a weekend of boxing, 7th and 8th of May. And is that
an exclusive there, Glenn?
It is an exclusive, especially for Darlo Radio. 8th of May, put that in your diary, in Newcastle, at the Eagles Arena, I believe, which is a fabulous, fabulous boxing venue. I shall be taking on Roy Jones, COVID permitting. Obviously, I want a crowd. I want a crowd in because I don't want to do like Tyson Jones behind closed doors, because that's not what it's about. We want to bring some entertainment to the northeast. We want to pick people up. People have been in the doldrums. People are depressed. People are on the bottom. People have lost jobs and really struggling. And as am I. And together we want to put something on. And tough boxing, tough promotions, who are a new outfit, which is great. Simon Whittle is the boss there, and he's new to the game as well, so he's coming in with a lot of enthusiasm, which is great. So I'm really looking forward to it. Training hard, whipping myself into shape, because 27 years, and only in the last couple of weeks have I ever hit a punch back. I've been in the gym training fighters, but I've purposely kept away from it all, because I knew that if I start hitting the bag again, I'd want to fight again. So I have not done anything. I've not done anything whatsoever. Climbed a few mountains, done a few walks, but other than that, nothing. So it's a long, long road back for me. I'm coming from, I'm a person that's kept Merlot and Shiraz in business for the last 20 years. So the wine's out the window, and the hard work is in, and please God, we'll be standing in the ring with Roy Jones Jr. on the 8th of May.
And how much of this is to help you with your mental health? You've touched on that. You've been in some dark places, which I really appreciate you telling us, because when it comes from the mouth of an ex-world champion, somebody in the know, we've got the likes of Dean Windass talking about it. Curtis Woodhouse, as you know, started It Starts Monday Club. And it's the club that Curtis in particular started, is not just about diet and fitness. It's the fitness that's pulling people out of these dark places. Do you find that's what's helped you so much, your training?
Very much so. Very much so. The training is, on so many levels is. One of them is, I never got to be my best. I never got to show the world what I could be, and that was hard. It's been hard. So to even capture a little bit of that, even to try and show that I'm what I can do, and I'm a long way off it yet. I'm just starting this journey, and but the goal is to be in the best possible shape I can be, and to be as good as I can possibly be. At 56, I'm 56 now, so it's to be the best I can possibly be, and just show some touches of what I was and what I could have been. So that's one side of it. The other side of it is, I need this so much. I need, there's been nothing for me for the last year. There's been no fights, no work, no. All the things that when I was suffering, when I've suffered depression over the years, there's always, you're going to Vegas next week, or you're going to New York, or we've got Lennox Lewis fighting, or we've got Holyfield, or Julio Cesar. There's always been something amazing to keep me going. And all of a sudden, over the last 12 months, there's been nothing to keep me going. And I haven't wanted to go on, it was like life was finished for me, and that's an awful thought. I saw my uncles, and I've seen this before because I saw my uncles who were all pitmen, and when the mines were shut, like so many in this area, that was them in the 50s, late 40s, 50s. That was them on the scrap heap, and you know, they died younger than they should, and because there was no hope. And that's how I felt. You know, I felt like life's over. And, you know, I've got young children, and I've got old children, young children, middle-aged children, but I've got young children, and you know, I can't be thinking like that, you know, about myself. I've got to be there for them. So it's and you know, also, you know, if I can help, you know, and I am trying to help people. It's very hard when you need help yourself, and I'm getting help. I'm getting professional help myself, you know, which is great, because I really need that. And you know, I've got good friends, you know, who are there for me at the end of the phone, and that's great. And I've got a great family. But when you get to a dark place, you don't think of any of that. It's just you know. So I tell people, you know, I've got to say, people, you know, if you're feeling down, you've got problems, there's people to speak to, and there's friends out there, there's family out there, and there's people, there's places you can do. Please pick up the phone and reach out. Do not keep it in, because if you keep it in like I did for 25 years, it just festers. It just gets worse. It just gets worse, and there's a point come when you can't go on, and you need help. And I'm there now, and anybody else that's feeling the same way, please pick the phone up and get help.
Well, that's a great message, Glenn, and I hope this fight is what's getting you out of bed in the morning and getting you to the gym. And
well, I was training at 6 o'clock this morning, Les. So
well, I did see how slow you were walking up them stairs. So you'd obviously been doing something.
You could tell, can't you?
A few years ago, we spoke about the Anthony Joshua Klitschko fight, and I asked you your predictions on that fight. I haven't actually got your answers here, so you're probably going to tell me that you said AJ was going to stop him in the 11th, but I can't actually quite remember what you said. But we've got, hopefully, coming up, AJ Fury. What's your thoughts on that one?
Well, do you know, if I can inspire anybody in me and Roy Jones, what's inspiring me is Joshua Fury, because it's you know, I think everybody in sport needs to see that fight. Everybody, you know, at the end of this, we need something massive. And you know, there's in sport, which sport is great, you know, and obviously everybody wants to get back to see their football team. Everyone wants to get back to see the rugby and the basketball and all the things. But the biggest sporting event you could ever, you know, the thing that just makes the footballers want to go and sit ringside, wants the actors to be ringside, is the heavyweight championship of the world. And that is the biggest thing in sport. And to have two British fighters hold both the versions of the title is just unbelievable. I mean, it's fantastic. It's fantastic for this country that, you know, we rule the waves again. You know, we're top of the tree as far as.
Do you think it'll happen in this country?
Do you know, this is my sort of problem with this is money talks. Money talks, and you know, Muhammad Ali and George Foreman had to go in the middle of the jungle for the biggest fight, you know, in decades. So I don't know. I really hope not. I really hope it happens here in England. I really hope it's a Wembley Stadium fight all day long. It's national pride. It's, you know, who's the best fighter? The best fighter on God's planet. Who is that? And you've got two great British fighters to contest that, and it should happen here. But money talks, and obviously fighters want to get, you know, short career. They want to get the most out of them. But I'd say to AJ and Fury, who's a friend. I get on very well with AJ, who's a great guy as well. You know, I admire them both. But I'd say to them both, you've got to do this for the public. You've got to do this for the British fans. You've got to do this, you know, for everybody. And you've got to do it over here. The British public and the world public have made them very, very rich young men. You know, they've got more money than they could ever spend in a few lifetimes. I could probably spend it, but they probably can't. But so they need to have that fight here for the public. I believe, because, you know, it's not about money; it's about national pride, and I think it's a fight that will lift the nation will lift the nation. What you want to do is see them absolutely go for each other. You know, the best man win, and then give each other a big hug at the end of the fight, which I know they will. And then, you know, I think that would just be, it'd be like the 66 Cup final all over again. It would just, you know, it would just give people a huge, huge lift.
So if I'm having a bet on this fight, because I've noticed you've managed to avoid that.
You know what,
who you recommending me I put my money on?
I tell you what, ask me the night before the fight, or on the day of the fight, because if they were fighting now, if the fight was going to take place now, I'd say Fury wins. Fury wins the fight. I just think he's got the capability. I just think nobody can beat him, because he's got the height, the reach, the skills, you know, good punch. You know, he's just an enigma. He's something else at this point. But we've seen how, you know, he quickly, after he won the title against Klitschko, how quickly he fell apart. You know, came apart at the seams. Had his own mental health problems and, you know, physical problems, and, you know, went 10 stone overweight. So there's a long while, you know, there might be 5-6 months if it happens this year, please God. So you've got to wait and see what happens. AJ looked great. Look, you know, who could beat him, you know? And then he goes off to Miami to a training camp to fight John Ruiz. Instantly when they said that, I said, banana skin, this, you know, he's going to get beat. He's going to get beat here. Everybody thought I was nuts. And I said, you know, I'd see it. I've been in this game for so long. I saw Lennox do the exact same thing. You just took your eye off the ball, just get a little bit overconfident, just listen to too many other people. Go to Miami, you know, the last place in the world you want to go, you know, at this day and age is Miami to train for a fight. There's too many distractions. So, you know, you've just got to see how they prepare, how they get ready. I think they'll both, you know, this is a career-defining fight. This is to be, you know, the greatest of a new generation. And it's going to be great. At this moment, I'd say Fury. In 6 months' time, ask me then.
Okay, so I'm going for a draw then, yeah.
A draw.
Yeah.
Draw the first fight, draw the second fight.
Yeah. Finally, Glenn, you're a Newcastle supporter.
I am.
I've been waiting for this.
Don't even talk about Crystal Palace.
What do you think's going on at Newcastle? Where's the problem stemming from?
You know what I mean? So many people know more about football than me. Obviously, I do. Newcastle is my team. You know, they go out against Everton. This is very typical of Newcastle, and they go out against Everton. And my son says, "Dad, what do you think about the game?" And I said, "You know what? They'll probably go and beat Everton." And he said, "You know what? He actually put a bet on a win." And that's because that's what they're like, you know. Beat Tottenham, they got a good team, and because they try.
Liverpool, and
then all of a sudden they're in with Crystal Palace, and it was you know, it was like a friendly. It was all they were doing was passing across the park and passing back and back to the keeper, and it was like, where's it gone? Where's the hunger gone? What's happened? What's been said or what's not been said with the manager, with the coach? You know, why are they playing differently? Now I couldn't understand that. Why did they not go firing the ball forward? You know, why did they not do that? So I don't know. It's just disappointing. It's very disappointing because, you know, when the passion's there, they're up there with anybody. They're up there anybody, but the passion can last, you know, one game in 10. And then they're back to nothing.
Yeah. I mean, you did mention about you wanting fans there when you fight Roy Jones. Do you think the fans have any impact on that?
I think they do.
Bearing in mind, and I hate saying this, Newcastle fans, you know, they don't half lift the team.
They don't half lift them, but also if they're not pulling the weight, they don't half pull them to bits as well.
Yes, I don't think Steve Bruce would be there now if there was fans in that stadium.
No, I don't. Do you know what? I mean, I like Steve Bruce. You know, I know him on a personal level. He's you know, really nice guy, good guy. I you know, if I'm honest, I don't know if he's quite up to the task. I'd like to see, you know, a little more passion. The time that Newcastle's really sort of performed, I mean, was Keegan and passion. And I think, the crowds, that's what we've got in the Northeast. We've got passion. We love our sport. And, you put that through, and you need somebody that can get that passion through to the players, get them to believe in Newcastle as much as the fans believe in Newcastle. Get them to love the team as much as the fans love the team, and that's a tough, that's a tough job.
Yeah, I sometimes think when people refer back to the Keegan era, that Newcastle fans were almost spoilt then, because most fans in the country almost had Newcastle as a second team because they played that much exciting football, and now they seem to have gone completely the opposite. But I do believe there's still that hangover from how Newcastle used to be to what they are now.
Yeah. No, you're probably right. I just, it's all about having a team that's passionate. The skills there. We know the players. We know they can do it. We know the skills are there to do it. It's just getting that message across to go out and play. And I don't know what Steve Bruce's team talk is. I don't know. I've never been party to that. I don't know, but it doesn't seem to arouse passion. It was like a practice match last night.
He doesn't seem to portray any passion when he's on the touchline either, does he? He tends to be there with his arms folded. Yet you've got this new guy who's come in, Jones, who's very vocal, and I think that's what Newcastle's needed.
But I mean, again, we're just talking without any sort of knowledge of really what's going on. But
speak for yourself.
Jones, everybody kind of, people were sort of thinking the Everton game was down to the influx of Jones coming in. Now, I have no idea. I don't know if he had a bit to do with it then, but it almost seemed like maybe Steve Bruce had said, this is my team. If anything had happened, I don't know, but it just seemed all of a sudden it went back to what we're used to for the rest, what we've had from Steve Bruce so far. We had one game. Whether Jones had anything to do with that, I don't know, or whether that was just because it's a better team. They went out fighting. And they looked a whole different team. Great against Everton, absolutely useless last night against Crystal Palace. So there you go.
Glenn, it's been fantastic talking to you. I hope we can get some of these fans in, and hopefully on 8th of May, to watch you defeat Roy Jones Jr.
I think Les. I think if there's no fans, the fight will be put back. I think it has to have that. It has to be an occasion. That's the whole point of it. The whole point of I'm not making a comeback. This is not. I wouldn't get a professional license. So it's not a comeback as such. This is an exhibition. I mean, it'll be a proper fight, once you're in the ring with Roy Jones, he'll be trying to knock me out and I'll be trying to knock him out. But it's not. So it's we want the fans there. We want the fans there. We want to make this a celebration. And the plan is to have 2 nights of boxing, 2 nights, the 7th and the 8th, 2 nights of lots of stuff going on and a real celebration back in the Northeast. Big time boxing back once more.
Great way to end the show, Glenn, and I hope it all goes ahead for you. And as I say, that you are victorious.